What's going on, YouTube? This is Baz from Stoic Gaming with another episode of Baz Speaks, and this week we are completely dedicated to Everquest Next. Everquest Next was announced on August 2nd, and I gotta say, it has completely blown me away. With what they had to put out. They are completely changing the dynamic of how MMOs are played and who plays them and how they play them and what they're doing in those games. Let's start off. We'll talk about the graphics engine right off the bat. I'll say loosely cel shaded. I think the art direction they took is really, really classic. They veered away from that super realistic thing that some MMOs are trying to do, and they've really kind of gave it an artsy style, somewhere in between, say, the Elder Scrolls Online and WildStar. It's really bright and it pops really well. But the big killer about this game is that it is a sandbox game. I know I've said it 100 times that nobody ever does a sandbox game right, and the last person to get it right was Star Wars Galaxies. Of course, EVE Online is a caveat to that. But it is a sandbox game, and that means that it's going to be player-created content, and the players are going to dictate how things happen, and the world is completely dynamic. They've taken a whole page out of EverQuest 2's book with the webcam-dictated facial expressions. So your webcam will be able to watch you, and as you're talking to somebody or somebody's talking to you and you make different facial expressions, it'll be in the video right here, it will dynamically change your character's face to express how you're feeling in real life based off of what your real facial expressions are. To me, that's awesome. That adds a whole new dynamic to the game, and interaction should be that much more deep. The big killer, as far as I can see in this game right now, is the voxel engine. The entire game is built out of voxels. Think Minecraft, but on much smaller voxels, so that the entire world is destructible. The entire world is capable of being molded and formed and built by the players. The world in itself is actually layered. Think Terraria, with the way that you could dig down, and maybe you're on the overworld, and then underneath that there's like dungeons type stuff, and underneath that there's like lava and hell type places and whatnot, and you'll be able to actually dig down or build up or change the way that the landscape is built. Also with that is that while you're fighting, let's say one of the examples they gave is if an orc is crossing a bridge, instead of fighting the orc, you could just destroy the bridge, the orc falls to his death. Most of these changes are going to be pretty permanent. Some of the sweeping destruction, they said, will slowly regrow and build itself back up over time. But for the most part, as players change things in the game, they're actually going to change the environment. Players are going to build cities, they're going to build towns and houses and different types of landscape, and that's going to be permanent changes to the game. This is very sandboxy. It kind of reminds me of a very evolved thing they did in Star Wars Galaxies with the player houses, and you can see entire player cities, but on a much more minute scale. They're going to release their creation software at the end of this year that allows you to actually build stuff up and place it into the game. Along with that, the AI is going to be a lot more intrinsic than, say, a lot of MMOs have been in the past. Typically with your World of Warcraft type game, you have an enemy just standing there with his little sword, and when you walk up to the enemy, he has an aggro bubble, and once you cross that aggro bubble, he attacks you simply because you crossed into his aggro bubble. Well, now there's going to be mobs like, let's say, a goblin, right? And you walk up to the goblin. Let's say you're trying to walk around the goblin. Maybe you broke, and that goblin wants money. He ain't going to mess with you because you have nothing he desires. There's actually going to be, they're going to have needs and wants. But if he thinks you have gold on you, maybe he likes gold, so he's going to try and come get you and kill you and take your gold. Or maybe he wants your weapons. Or they haven't gone into a lot of explanation about it, but it sounds really cool with the way they're doing dynamic AI. As far as the combat system, it's a hybrid between tab targeting and action-based combat. Out of what it sounds very reminiscent of Guild Wars 2. Haven't heard a whole lot of complaints about the system. I personally am more into the full-on action combat akin to Neverwinter, but we'll see. What they've done in the game, it looks like they have a lot of people that are making this game that really, really care about how this game is built and what's happening with it. They said there's going to be a mind-bending 40 classes. 40 classes. To to pick from, and you're going to be able to build hybrid class and dual class or something along those lines. So this has become, since August 2nd, this has become my new favorite MMO on the horizon. The Elder Scrolls Online, I got some FaceTime with that. It was awesome. It was very Elder Scrolls, but a game like this changes the landscape. No pun intended. But it changes the landscape, and it brings an evolution to MMOs. And I hope this becomes the new standard for what MMOs will be, instead of these World of Warcraft clone static theme park type games. And they get back to the roots of MMOs with like UO. They get back to the roots of games like UO, where it was player driven and the stories came fluidly from player created content. And that's exactly what EVE Online's been doing forever, and very successfully, I might add. First, they're going to sit down with players, talk about what players want. It's phase one. After that, they're going to release their engine so players can start creating player-built content. And then they're going to go ahead and launch the game. So I'll be doing a lot of videos as there's updates on this. As always, Stoic Gaming is where to go if you need your news on what's going on. And take it easy.